Today's May 30th. The Pirates played a doubleheader this week, surrounded, though, by 3 days off. It's kind of weird. Jones and Skenes on the same day, and we're back live. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates. And my name is Josh, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, Jake. What's up, Jake?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Going all right. Jake is on the road right now. And, I was trying to click on something while I was saying that, just to make sure that everything was, working. So, just kind of taking a look at that. Anyway, where are you at, man?
So I'm in Destin, Florida right now, hanging out at the hotel. Parents come down for the week, so took them down to a nice clear water beach.
That's what's up. So they're down there for like a full week.
Yeah. They got here yesterday, Wednesday, and then they're flying out the following Wednesday. So. Should be a good visit.
Yeah. Well, we do have baseball this week. It's felt like we haven't, but we have had baseball this week.
Yeah. It's been an interesting baseball week, but it's been baseball nonetheless.
Yeah, it seemed like an absolutely pointless doubleheader. Along with yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know. We can start there a little bit. You know what I mean? There's no rain on the day that it's actually canceled, and then it's pouring down rain for Jared Jones' start. And, I'm not going to. I have a thing, right, where I say there's a difference between excuses and reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to make excuses for anyone. I don't know that there's a reason, right? I'm not saying that there was anything there. I mean, his command was a little bit different than it has been. Obviously, a career high in walks, what 3?
Yeah,
so it's
right.
like big deal. But no, it was actually only 2 walks. 3 walks must have been the last one. Either way, he only goes 4 1/3, 5 earned runs, 7 runs total that scored. Maybe there's something there, only 2 strikeouts. Maybe there's something there that has to do with the rain. I don't necessarily, I don't think so, but you know how I like to dabble a little bit in conspiracies. And the Paul Skenes debut, when the rains came down, it felt like no one could grip a baseball.
Yeah.
And Skubal throws 21 pitches in the first inning. It looked like, my goodness, he's going to go 5 innings here. And then the second inning, I don't have them. I don't have the inning by inning pulled up here, but the second inning wasn't a whole lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Now, he did only walk 1, but I believe it was later on. Okay. It was Hayes in the second inning, I think. But either way, it seemed like maybe there was a little bit there that Skubal maybe was struggling with as well. It didn't impact him as much, but let's get real. Skubal has been as good as you could imagine he could be.
Yeah, for sure. He's been dealing this year.
So there's, like I said, it's not about making excuses, but there is a little bit of me that wonders if whatever they did to the baseball this year, because we know that the baseball is different.
Yeah.
We know that. The baseball is not flying the way that it has. That is without question. Anybody could fight me on that one. I'll go. I mean, there's just a lot there. But anyway, and maybe it's changing a little bit. Maybe they're starting to throw in some different baseballs. I don't know that for sure. I know that like the Pirates are hitting better, but you can't base it off of that. They were hitting terribly, and now they're starting to hit better. I don't think that's a baseball change. But anyway, I don't know. Either way, this was bound to happen, and it's okay. Now, if he does it 3 starts in a row, maybe not so okay.
Yeah, kids eat quarters all the time. It's when they crap out 2 dimes and a nickel. Then you start worrying.
So, I mean, we'll get into Jones a little bit more. Yeah. The specific outing, I know I kind of threw some of the line out there already. But we're going to talk about Jones. We'll talk about Skenes. We talk about both of them on the same day. Couple IL news, couple guys going to the IL, one coming off. And then just take a look at maybe a couple other things, Nick Gonzales, and maybe some things from around the league if we have enough time. We'll see where we're at time-wise. But there's a couple things that we'll throw in at the end that are kind of all around. But let's give a round of applause here for Grant Cook getting his MLB debut. Got a walk. No hits, but he got a walk. I imagine he'll get a couple more tries, maybe. Grandal's not going to catch every day,
right?
So he's going to get to do a little bit. So that's always good. Now let's. What was I going to say here? I guess we could go to the injury updates first before we jump into the other thing. So Joey Bart, 10-day IL with the left thumb injury. That's how Grant Cook got here in the first place. Ke'Bryan Hayes comes back off the IL. Get it back off the IL from his back. And we'll get into that in a second. Martin Perez is going to the injured list with a groin injury, and they are still awaiting some tests there. I would imagine that we'll see something where Quinn Priester comes up and takes his starts. I've seen some things that with all the days off, maybe they go shorter rotation. I don't see them doing that. I think you may as well give Jones and Skenes their days off. And if they get extra days off, I think that's a good thing.
Right, yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and then let's give Quinn Priester another run here and see. I mean, it's a pretty obvious he goes down to AAA. Like, there's nothing left except for staying sharp. Right. And then getting the most he's going to learn is in the MLB. That's just all there is to it. And so it'll be nice to see him get another little run, maybe work on some things, maybe see some things. And when he does, he's going to go down to AAA. The results are going to be there, but it's going to be a question of whether he's working on the things that he's working on and whether they're working, that's a lot of work, whether they're effective.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jones and Skenes specifically heading, well, you know what? No, I skipped over that. I said we were going to come back to it. Ke'Bryan Hayes off the IL with the back thing. It almost seemed from the information that we're getting that he's not necessarily okay still. Did you get that vibe?
I did not. I must not have read anything about it. I just saw he was back.
Okay, so they kind of said it's the lower back thing. It's been a problem. It will continue to be a problem until something's done about it. I don't know what can be done about it. I don't know if this is something that is going to be, that it's going to require surgery to make things better. I mean, I don't know. But it is obvious, like, he's got a pretty violent swing. And I just have watched him when he, specifically when he swings and misses. I'm like, dude, man, you're going to hurt that back again. Not knowing that it's been hurting. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we question some of the other stuff about his game and whatever. But if he's been dealing with a sore back, and it seems like this is not like, oh, my back flared up, IL. No, this seems like he's been playing through it.
Right.
And we even know that even more so by the fact that, like, oh, let's give him some days off. And then finally it's like, all right, dude, we got to make a move. when Cruz about went down, that was kind of like, we can't have somebody unavailable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was interesting because he said that it's even like diving plays. It's not just the swing, it's diving plays. And it's like, dude, that's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
Like your salary is essentially mostly defense and a little bit of offense. And we're excited if we get any offense out of you because then we get a bargain on your contract. Like it's a massive discount, you know what I mean? But if you can't provide that defense, well, now you kind of need to make up for it with offense. But if it's a back thing, how can we even expect that to be a thing?
Right. Man, that's tricky.
So you have this kind of frustrating situation with Hayes where, like I said, if he can't be that defender, it does make it, I mean, it's not like his replacement, Jared Triolo, is really tearing the cover off the ball. And if Key Bryan can still be a good defender and not be the greatest defender in the game, which when he's healthy, I believe he is. Today, when you use greatest, it does feel like you mean forever. I just mean like right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
active. Playing,
yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, you're going to want some more offense out of him, but if it's the back, I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22 there. And, you know, it's a big question of what you're going to get from him moving forward and how much this is going to flare up and how you're going to spell him because you're going to have to give him so many days off. And I just don't know that, like, if your back is hurting, how effective are you when you are in the game? I think that's a legitimate question.
I mean, yeah, your back is just used so much, especially the lower back. Like anything twisting, anything, that's throwing, hitting. It's literally everything. So that's a big question mark as to how bad does it hurt? Are you hurting it worse when it's hurt? Like when it's hurting?
Right.
There's
Eventually,
a lot of question marks.
Eventually, you have to feel like there has to be something done.
Yeah,
and it's not just rest. Like it's something's wrong in there, and you got to fix it.
Yeah,
he's too young to just have a bad back. I'll tell you one thing. How does he bulk up every offseason and not think that's going to affect anything? Like the number one thing I'd be doing is getting out of the weight room.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can't get out of it, but you can do, like, certainly don't need to be lifting heavier weight. Do more reps with less weight. Do something like that. But, like, you can't literally come in the last 2 years gaining weight room weight and expect your back to be okay. I would just be like, you're never doing squats again. There's other things you can do for those muscles. You're never doing squats again. Until that back is in good shape. There's just no point in doing it. It's awful on your back.
Yeah.
Anyway, to me, that's where I would be. I would be getting him way backed off of the weights. I remember it was going into last year. I remember being like, oh, like look at Key. He's like massive. And then this year it was like the power or whatever was starting to show up, and you were like, okay. But like, at what cost, man? Like, if you can't be Key Bryan Hayes on defense, you can get stronger. But if you can't pull the ball, it doesn't matter. What is it? You're getting 109 line drives to right, like 109 mile per hour line drives to right field. So what? You know what I mean? Like, I'll take 99 for that matter, and slap the ball to right field. But if you're not pulling it, I don't see why it matters if you're bigger. So anyway, that's something to worry about. Not really worry about, but that's something to keep your eye on, right? And
I'm worrying.
And those who replace him, in my opinion, like, I understand that Triolo is also a good defender, but I almost want to say, like, whoever's replacing him should be able to hit. I'll take less defense for a bat at that point. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
mean, that makes sense. Yeah. We need
Value's
offense.
value, I guess. You know what I mean? Value's value. If I just don't think he's going to be Key Brian Hayes good at third base. Triolo's it kind of pushes it to be close, but I don't think it's quite that. So anyway,
Yeah.
Jones and Skenes, you get them both on the same day. You get super excited. Obviously, Jones, I don't want to say didn't hold his end of the bargain, but he essentially didn't, right?
He got roughed up a little bit.
He got roughed up a little bit. And we've seen some of this from Jones where maybe one of those fastball slider is not sharp. And in the past or the other starts that he's done this, he's been able to go to those other offerings, the curveball and the changeup, which are not as dominant as the fastball and slider. But he's been able to utilize the curveball and changeup to still be effective. And it seemed like he wasn't able to do that this time around. Specifically the curveball, if I remember right. I just felt like he wasn't able to drop that into the strike zone. And so when those secondary pitches can't bail you out, what are you going to get? I mean, you also got...
Yeah, you're in for a rough day.
Yeah, you also got Matt Vierling on an absolute white hot streak right now. And he hit the 3-run homer that really just kind of blew that thing open. And then at that point, I think it just kind of... I mean, it speeds up on you. He's still a rookie. And so I just think that the game sped up on him in that moment, and he was not able to really slow it down.
And I'm kind of glad to see it, to be honest with you, because now I'm interested to see where he goes from here. You're going to have this start as a rookie. It's going to happen. I mean, shoot, how many? 10 starts before this one? 10, 11 starts? I don't know where he's at exactly, but he's been nothing but good, and he hasn't been hit a lot. I mean, he's had some not as good outings, right? But they still haven't been bad outings. This is the first one that you're kind of like, yeah, you got roughed up on this one. Okay, so now what are you going to do your next start?
Yeah, and you're right. It was 10 starts before, so that was his 11th.
It was
start.
10. Okay, so like now is the fun part. Now we get to see. Okay, you got hit. Now what you got? What are you going to follow that with?
Yeah, 3.55 ERA still on the season. I mean, the WHIP is still 1.01. In his last 7 games, which we said we've seen some of this, like where he doesn't have everything, and he still has a 1.14 WHIP with a 3.79 ERA in his last 7 starts. So there's still, you know what I'm saying, there's still something there. But you've now had at least 3 runs, at least 3 games in a row. Is that right? Yeah, 3, and then 5 earned runs, right? But 7 runs. So, and the start before that was 2 earned through 6. This was his first non-5 inning start.
Yeah, and you're not. The pace he was on was not going to be sustained. It just wasn't.
Right.
So
in some of the formats, like the whiffs and the, you know what I'm saying, like in that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some extra good stuff coming out of that. I mean, there was seemingly no walks. Like his April, a 286 in 5 starts, 32 strikeouts and 28. I mean, I think that's still sustainable, but 3 walks, 32 strikeouts to 3 walks just feels insane. And that changes in 5 starts now. He actually went 1 more inning in May. It's a 3.99. It's not a terrible month. I mean, like I said, this is, his first really bad start. 28 strikeouts, 7 walks. So, you go a little here and there, but essentially the guy is still dealing. It is going to be really interesting to see where he goes from here and how his next start, which should be against the Dodgers. I mean, is that really? Yeah, I think he's going to go. Yeah, his next start will be against the Dodgers. So that's going to be really interesting to see how he bounces back and does against that team. And then the Cardinals after that. So it'll be really interesting. He's going to have some important games coming up in June when you talk about Dodgers and then divisional games, because he should line up against the Cardinals. He should line up against the Reds and then the Reds again. So he's got a Dodgers and 3 divisional games to throw in June. I'm doing this very quickly. So if I'm lining all these up right, I guess it could be like a Tampa Bay or something like that. Instead of a second Red start. I don't really know. It depends on where he is, where he falls in that first Red series, at home. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Skenes, on the other hand, just continued to show up. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 9 strikeouts. He does give up the home run, but he gives it up once again to Matt Vierling.
And it's a solo shot.
And it was a solo shot, but like, geez Louise, this guy.
Yeah.
You talk about a dude on a hot streak, man.
The only thing with Skenes, though, is like, I was watching that game, and he was through 3 innings. He was 60 pitches.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same sort of thing. Like, he's getting deep into counts for sure.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's his style of pitching. That's what happens.
I don't know, though. I think there's still command stuff that he needs to work on, and we see a lot of that.
Part of it was that stupid long at bat. I can't remember who the hitter was. But man, he fouled off everything. I think it was like a 13 pitch at bat or something like that. Insane.
Yeah, do you remember when that was? Well,
I think it was in the 3rd inning.
In the 3rd?
And I think he ended up getting the guy. He struck the dude out on like the 12th or 13th pitch of the at bat to end the inning. It was like his 58 or 59.
Well, that would have been Vierling. Yeah, it was It was the 11th pitch, and that was Vierling.
Sheesh.
What?
It was just a lot.
Oh, okay.
He had really good at bat against Skenes, and then it's Vierling. It's just to hear that name again. It's Vierling again.
Yeah, Vierling again. Yeah, and that's, and you'd like to see him kind of turn. I mean, that inning alone started off pretty good, and then the 11 pitch at bat really kind of crushed that inning as well. But I thought there was one against Canna. Yeah, to start off the 4th, a 9 pitch at bat, which ended in a strikeout as well, to Mark Canna. So yeah, there were some at bats that went pretty deep. A 7 pitch at bat to Baду, also ended in a strikeout. So yeah, for sure. I mean, it stacked up on him a bit. And I'm trying to remember. I mean, there was the home run by Vierling, which was literally a first pitch slider, which I don't know why you're throwing. I mean, we saw that. I think all of his home runs are sliders. Just don't do that. Stop. Obviously, as we go into the rest of that game and talk through the 2 games there, he hands the ball to Aroldis Chapman, and you had to sit there and kind of hold your breath. He walks the first guy, and you're like, oh my gosh, are we really going to do this again? He settles in. He does fine. It ends up being okay. And then I think Holderman, Bednar shut it down. Yeah, Holderman, Bednar shut it down. And so no harm. We get out of it, giving up no runs after Skenes comes out. The doubleheader ends up being a split. It's impossible, not impossible. We've talked about all the time. It's very hard, not only for a 2-game series to sweep that when you're away. It's just difficult, but it's even more difficult to say, okay, you go into a doubleheader and you sweep it. It is hard for whatever reason. It's so often a split. And in this case, the story you thought we had an opportunity for it to be Jones and Skenes. It ends up being Skubal and Skenes. Both of them just absolutely dominant. I mean, we got 3 hits in the first game. I think they got 3 hits in the second game. Both of us scored 10 runs in the doubleheader. And I think if you're counting, I think the Pirates had a couple extra hits in the second game. But all things considered, pretty even matchup when you have the pitching matchups. Like, it would have been really interesting to see a Skubal Skenes game.
Yeah.
And then flip that around. That would have been awesome. Game 2 though, Kutch 3 for 4 with a walk and a double and some RBIs and some smiles and some bat flip kind of stuff. And great performance from him. By the way, the 4 starts that Skenes has had so far, Kutch has homered in all of them. So pretty interesting. Pretty interesting there. But also, and the guy that I want to kind of talk about a little bit here is Nick Gonzales and how good he's been since coming up. And so since coming up, 313, 375 on base, 547 slugging. That's good for a 922 OPS. 4 doubles, a triple, 3 homers, 16 RBIs. And he's sitting at 25% strikeout rate, which with a big knock on him was the over 30. So 25, I'll live there. I'm fine with that because of how he's come up.
Yeah. In
certain situations. Yeah. I'm not afraid of a strikeout or a guy who's going to do damage also striking out. I'm not afraid of that. I talked about Jack Sawinski. He's a better hitter when he's up above 25% strikeout rate. It sounds crazy, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'll throw a hey to Pit City what? Joining in here on the live stream. But yeah, Nick Gonzales has been kind of that guy that's kind of helped spark this whole thing. You want to talk about him and Skenes coming up right at the same time, and the offensive numbers. That I don't think that it's a coincidence that I'll say Skenes. We've talked about this before. I'll say the excitement of Paul Skenes has made a difference, but also putting another bat in the lineup that can actually do damage. And as much as he's like some of his at-bats, man, it just looks like, oh man, he didn't have a chance. But the very next at-bat is a great at-bat, and he ends up with a hit. And then the next at-bat, he swings first pitch double or something like that. You know what I mean? And then his fourth at-bat, maybe a first pitch ground out. But like, hey, it worked for him the last time. I'm not going to fight it. If he's going to swing early to avoid strikeouts, if you can do okay on the first pitch, go for it. That's probably a good thing that to look up. And I don't know if the splits on MLB, because I have his page pulled up on MLB. I don't know if they go quite that crazy. They don't. So they don't go into like swinging at the first pitch or second pitch. I could get into that stuff in like Baseball Reference pretty easily, but I don't have that page up, and we're already in this. But what's interesting to me is when he's behind in the count. Is that average? When he's behind in the count, Jake, he's hitting 364. Is that the home runs? All 3 of his home runs have come behind in the count. No, he has 4 home runs. No, he has 3 home runs. All 3 of them behind in the count. 370. Now
I didn't realize that.
His on ahead in the count. His on base is 412, but his average is only 167. So crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Just not giving up there. It doesn't quite make sense though. Because it's only 6 RBIs and he has 16. I guess the other 10 might be coming when he's even in the count, not ahead or behind. That's probably fair. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because on the first pitch of that bat, you're even.
Oh, that's a good point. And if he has been swinging at a lot of first pitches too. So, yeah, it's crazy. But Nick Gonzales, to me, the one thing that we've been talking about for the last 2 years, Peguero, Triolo jumping into the mix, but before that it was Bay and it was Marcano and it was Gonzalez and it was all these names that we've said somebody has to take second. And Nick Gonzales finally feels like he's taking second. Now, it's a long season.
Right.
But what he's showing right now, you have to like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been kind of barking up the Nick Gonzales tree for a while now. I think everybody knows that. But I mean, he's finally come up and he's putting major league at bats together day in, day out. And to me, that's what we've been wanting. We've been crying for at second base. Like, just, dude, somebody give me a professional at AB consistently.
Yeah, and the defense hasn't been bad either.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, his error the other day, where's that at? That was in the Jones game, right? Yeah, first error. A fielding error. And it was the tag. It was the tag at second base where the guy, you got to hold on to the ball. You got to use two hands. Let's be critical first, right? You got to go two hands. You got to hold on to the ball. However, I mean, the guy was like a semi-truck stick. I mean, he definitely leaned into him. He didn't throw his arms, though, right? He didn't throw his arms. It was mostly shoulder. He kept his arms tucked in. And if I'm making that call, I'm probably giving benefit of the doubt of the fact that, like, he's mostly just bracing for impact.
Yeah.
Right now, if he throws the hands, he's out. But I don't mind the no call there necessarily. But there's no doubt in my mind that he knocked the ball out and that it was probably intentional. But he did it in a way that's like, hey, that's within the rules and that's fine for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to complain about it. I would hope that my guy can get away with that too. So I think there's a lot of that. I thought it wasn't egregious. He didn't, like I said, he didn't throw the elbow or throw the hands. So I'm okay with the non-call there. I think it's interesting that it's an error, but I guess it has to be. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, there's nothing else you can call it.
I mean, if you have a collision, he did touch the ball and he dropped the ball, so I guess you have to call it that. But I wonder if you also call... In the major leagues, if I field a ball at second, second base, and I throw to second base and he's safe, you don't get a hit for that because he was safe. You still get a fielder's choice in most cases, I believe.
Yeah.
With no error. So they could have called that a fielder's choice and not given the error there. However, like I said, I don't care because I don't care about errors, to be honest with you. I don't care. Errors are going to happen. Physical errors are going to happen.
Right.
So, big deal. There are plenty of defensive statistics that exist right now that we can stop talking about fielding percentage. We can stop talking about errors. All it means is you don't have the ability to get to as many balls as I do. And so I'm making errors on the balls that you don't even ever get to. So errors they don't do it for me. I don't care about them. I don't want to see terrible errors in critical moments in a game. But when I look back at somebody's season and say, well, Hayes has 4 errors already. Big deal. Hayes also makes a ton of plays that nobody else even touches. It's more times than not, it's going to work out for you, right? I just think there are better statistics. I think if you have a ton of errors, that's one thing. Or if you have no errors, that's also one thing. There's great things on both sides. If you're somewhere in the middle, I don't care. It's a meaningless thing to me. Like I said, it means more about wins and losses if those errors cost you. If you make an error and a guy gets on first, the next guy hits into a double play, you could just as much take that error off the board. I don't care about it. You've erased it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's a counting stat. So, I mean, like you said, if you're going to racking them up, then it's a big deal. I don't care if any of them costed you an actual
right.
game
Yeah, that's
or
what I'm
not.
saying. Once you get to like a high number.
Because eventually Yeah, because eventually that's going to hurt you.
Right. So anyway, interesting there, fun times. You split a doubleheader. It's on the road. I guess that's fine, right? Even if it was the series. A little bit bothered though by the fact that they didn't need to do that. That seemed like a very clear decision from Detroit to protect Skubal. They didn't want him starting a game that then he'd have to sit down and waste a start. So they said, we're canceling it. And then it never stinking rained.
Yeah.
Like that's, to me, that bothered me. And it was, I believe I heard it said that like Jones likes to start his stuff real early and was already kind of getting going and then had to shut it down and then do it again the next morning. And maybe that played a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, like I said, I don't want to make excuses. What happened, and you brush it off and you move on. Who cares, right? It's done.
Yeah.
He could have also given up 3 runs and still lost that game. So he could have given up 1 run and still lost that game.
Right.
So it's.
I don't want to skip over the fact that it's either like Koch 1,600 hits.
Okay.
That 3-run homer was a 1,600th hit.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, like, we will continue to talk about that stuff. It's so funny how much he doesn't care.
Yeah.
1,600th hit as a Pirate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a Pirate. I think he even said, like, oh, I thought it'd be more than that. But either way. All right, let's get into a couple other things here. Have a little bit of fun with this. A couple things kind of going around throughout the year. I was going to talk about the whole Mets and Jorge Lopez and the wildness that happened there. But now there's like other stories coming out that he didn't really say what everybody thought he said. And now it's like a little bit different. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. It's pretty wild. I mean, the Mets are
a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah. I mean, that as much money as they spent and went out there. I mean, we talked about it so much that you just can't buy wins, and they are the example of that. You can buy great players, but it doesn't always equal. Nothing on paper matters. You've got to play the games and you've got to execute. And so, I mean, it's the same thing we say now. We like a lot of the talent on the team. If they're not going to execute, they're not going to be a good team.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're not going to go ahead and get into that. Let's talk about one retirement that happened this week, and maybe throw the claps in here, right? Angel Hernandez retires from Major League Baseball.
Oh, I must have missed that.
I am not sure how. My favorite comment on Angel Hernandez retiring, by the way, was somebody who said, oh, he thought it was a contract extension, so he signed it. When he looked at the paper, he saw contract extension.
That's funny.
That's my excuse me. That's my favorite one.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's super good. But yeah, Angel Hernandez retiring. The only thing I don't like about it, and this is a super weird thing, is now it'll just be somebody else.
Yeah.
There's been enough data to show that he is actually not the worst umpire. He's the most annoying, for sure. But there are other guys worse. I just don't like a lot of what he. I don't know. The quick hook, the throwing people out, like it wasn't just balls and strikes. It was check swings that were awful. I mean, Bryce Harper in Pittsburgh, right? When he just went running out to third base and got in his face, and you know what I mean? Yeah. He just does his thing, and that was certainly not a check swing. Or it was not a swing. I mean, he definitely checked. That was just a terrible. But it's happened way too much with him, and everything else that surrounds him. If you're unfamiliar, I mean, just look it up. I mean, there's enough there to say Like, bro, you haven't deserved to be in a World Series. It's because you're a bad umpire, and no other reason. But sayonara. See you later. I don't know if I have any sounds that are about saying bye. So I can't do that. I always think of the thing at the end of the shows. And I can't remember what show this was. It was when we were like kids or whatever, where the guy's just like, bye, have a good time.
Yeah.
I have that sound.
I see what that's from too.
But it's not it's not on here on this sound bar, or sound deal. So anyway, see you later. I don't know who's next. I know that John Boy put up a video saying it might be CB Buckner. But like it's just gonna be another one, right? There's just gonna be another guy that we use as the face of bad umpiring.
Yeah.
Whatever. See you later, dude. Also, the other cool thing that happened it's cool. The other cool thing that happened this week was the changing of kind of the stats. Back in 2020, we had the whole thing where like the Negro Leagues are starting to count as Major League statistics, and how that changed. One example I thought was funny, Satchel Paige. He pitched in the major leagues, but he never hit a home run. But once they said these Negro League statistics counted, he gets a major league home run now.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. But it's a pretty interesting thing. Obviously, a lot of the different leagues and a lot of the different teams and games played and everything were had like a lot of inaccurate statistics and things like that. Box scores from one city and another city don't match. And so like there was a lot of stuff like that was inconsistent. I mean, we know Josh Gibson to have hit almost 800 home runs on his Hall of Fame plaque. We see other people saying like it's 960 home runs that he hit, right? So the thing is, he hit a lot of those in like barnstorming games or showing up into a town and playing a city league team. You know what I'm saying? Like he might have gone a summer. This was an example that I used in another conversation. He might have gone a summer and hit 250 home runs. But if 220 of them were in barnstorming and playing city league teams and company teams, those 220 aren't going to count.
Right.
Just the 30 that he hit in actual league games are the ones that are going to count. And I think it'd be hard pressed to even think about 30, right? I mean, because their seasons were like their scheduled seasons were much shorter.
Yeah.
And so like they didn't have a 162 game. I couldn't imagine 30 home runs in a summer in only the games that count. But anyway, back in the day, I'll go ahead and show this off for those on video. I think this was back in 2020. Let's see if there's a date on this. 2021. Okay, so back in 2021, I believe they sent this to me. Baseball Reference sent it to me, and I believe it was sent to me. I don't know if we bought it, or I think they sent it to me when it was like a perk for being a subscriber or something to StatCast and ad-free Baseball Reference, whatever. But it is Negro Leagues are the major leagues. See if I can get that in frame there. And it kind of explains a lot of what they can count and what they can't. It's pretty interesting right now because I know that like Josh Gibson, it says here, 374 average with 165 home runs. But if you go to Baseball Reference, today, you'll see 166 home runs. But if you look on MLB leaders, they have him marked for 174. So it seems like there's constantly like, okay, we're validating things to see like what can we recognize as actual stats.
Legitimate.
Legitimate.
Stats.
Yeah. So that's what here it says. Josh Gibson was credited for 962 home runs in his 17-year career, but he's only going to get credit for somewhere between 166 and 175. There are 7 major Negro Leagues, starting in 1920 when Rube Foster started. Which one did he start? 1920 would have been the Negro National League, right? So he started that in 1920. That was the first like organized professional Negro League. And they stopped counting all the stats in 1948. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 47. Many players followed those seasons after. I think Campanella won his first MVP in 49, right? So I think the point is okay, after 48 was our last year, you could now play Major League Baseball. So we're not going to count those other things because the best of the best would have moved on, right?
Right.
In that sense. And so anyway, it is, it's a pretty cool thing. It does change some statistics, mostly not counting stats because of the reasons that I just talked about. But Josh Gibson is now the number 1 hitter as far as average, career average in Major League Baseball history because of that. And I think there's like 7 things. They're all percentage based, which is also, I guess, kind of interesting in a way there too, because like, what does it take to qualify for that? And how do you qualify those? All of that data or all of that, we don't, want to be on here for another hour, but all of that is kind of available out there, the way that they explain it and the way that they qualify things. There's a lot of guys who just don't have enough body of work to qualify for leaders in percentage stuff, right?
Right.
Obviously, Josh Gibson probably played all of those years. And so he would have enough at-bats or plate appearances or whatever it took to qualify for that. So pretty cool. There's just not like, it's not a huge impact. There are some like Satchel Paige, like Minnie Minoso, who had major league careers that now they had certain major league statistics, and now you can add some extra numbers to their major league numbers to really kind of give you. And so here's the thing. I get it. Those leagues were probably just as competitive. At least the ones they were playing against each other, just not all the other games, right? I mean, Josh Gibson, I imagine, probably had multiple games where he just stepped up and hit 5 home runs in a game pitching against the guy who was just essentially throwing BP, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that happened more times than you can imagine. But I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I understand the argument that some might have that say, well, as much as you agree with the fact that the competition was there, it was a different league. So how can we just pretend like they were in the major leagues and just put those stats in there? It's a fair argument. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of ways that we can still honor those players if that didn't happen. For me, I just don't, I don't mind this as much. My thing is the further we get away from those games, the further we get away from those numbers, do we continue to add numbers there and say like, well, we think we got this one right, so let's add them in. There's 2 more home runs for this guy. Like we got a guy who hasn't played since the 1940s or 50s, and we're still adding stats. And it's like, at some point, maybe let's just put these things in stone.
Yeah.
And you can continue to tell the story. You can continue to add whatever whatever you think to some numbers. But I think as far as like the official book, I don't mind this. I don't want to see this like continue to say like, well, this guy played in this league too. Maybe we should count that. I don't know. Like, how far do you go with it? And, either way, I think it's a cool thing. It's good to see, a Pittsburgh guy, Josh Gibson, who now gets to sit atop those, those lists, knowing all well that he would have been a great Major League Baseball player had he been allowed to play. And so, I think that keeping those boundaries in the way that they have, I think is, I think they're doing a very good job of really like doing their homework on this. I mean, this has been a 4-year thing, right? I mean, 4 years ago, I think 2020 was when they decided to say we're recognizing these as major league teams. So now to actually put them in, I think it's pretty cool. I do have caution of how far it goes in other things. You know what I mean? Like, the one joke was like, well, we may as well start, take all of Ichiro's stats from Japan and just put them here. You can't do that. Right. There's nothing.
It's already a thing. Like
Right. And it goes back to saying like all those, those 7 Negro leagues, whatever ones were still standing at the time, but they stop at 1948 because they were able to play Major League Baseball at that point. And so anybody from Japan can come over and play Major League Baseball. So we can't do that. We can't just say like, well, we're going to recognize all of Ichiro's stats. He's now the hit leader. Like, no,
right.
We don't want to go that far. And so that's where I'm saying, like, I think it's good that they drew a line and said, this is what we're going to count. And we're not just going to say like, let's just count it all. You know what I mean? I think they're doing, they're doing their homework. They're doing their research. I think it's a pretty cool thing. And I'm not a book reader, so I have not read this, but I have read some of it. Right. I'm like the guy that wrote a book report in high school based off of what you read on the back, but not even the back of this, but the back of the Cliff's Notes version of it. I was like, as many shortcuts as I could go. I remember I did a report one time on the Call of the Wild. This is how I'll finish off here. I'll give you a chance to say anything else. But I did a book report one time on the Call of the Wild. I think I made it about a quarter away through, and I had to do this report. So I wrote what I knew, and then I just made up the rest. And I remember getting the paper back, and it was like, this is a really good book report. That's not what happened, though. So it was like, I got like an okay grade on it, but she was like, you didn't read the book, but this is well written, so I'll give you points for that, but you did not do the assignment.
That's funny.
So it was like, well, at least I did okay. You have anything to add before we get out of here?
No, man, I think I'm good. It's good. Just some good talk here today.
Yeah, Sunday, you're out Sunday, right?
Yeah, I have a big inspection at work on Monday morning, and I got to prep for it all night.
That's right. You said you're going to be there super late. Okay, so we'll get somebody else in here for Sunday and catch up with you after that then. But, hey, thanks for making this work. Thanks for getting on here. And, I know it's not ideal sometimes traveling and whatever else, but we got it done.
Yeah, just hanging out in the conference room here. I'm sure you can hear commotion in the lobby, but
nope.
It is what it is.
Can't hear it, man. Can't hear it. Haven't been able to hear it. It's been really smooth. Pirates got Toronto this weekend. They're going to be up in the Maple Leaf State, and it's 3 of them. Let's see if they can get some wins there before coming back and playing the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So let's hope for a sweep. We got some catching up to do, Jake.
Yeah, right? I agree.
All right, let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks.